We will keep you right up to date with the very latest from that NATO summit that is now, as we said, getting underway in Washington. Well, let's bring in Kristine Berzina, who's the Managing Director of Strategy North. And Kristine, good to have you with us. And I was talking there to our defence correspondent. There's so much going on right now if you look at the geopolitical situation around the world. And I wonder, that's where I'd like to start with you, because so many elections, so much political change. And I wonder where it leaves that alliance, given what we've seen and the potential for political change and the strategy or the direction of where NATO may head.
Thank you so much. It is really quite a week in Washington for the NATO summit. But if we look back at a year ago at the Vilnius summit for NATO, there was concern about Russia. There was much more language about the threat that China poses, but it wasn't, and there was a tactical challenge. But I think this year we have a larger strategic challenge, both outside in the world as well as within the alliance. There has been iterative progress for the alliance, for NATO, to make plans, to make sure they're resourced, to increase defense spending. All of that is great. But this year, we're not so much worried about Russia and China. We're really looking at four very complicated actors and the potential for them to cooperate in ways that threaten the alliance, all of the allies, and partners in the Pacific. So the problem is Russia plus China, Russia plus Iran, and North Korea in this dynamic. What does it mean to have much more coordinated, dangerous, mutually reinforcing behavior by Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran? Which is why the speed of NATO's developments, while commendable, is perhaps too slow when compared to the quick defense industry uptick that we're seeing across the problematic four actors and the potential that cooperation can bring. So there is a bigger outside storm. And for that reason, for the third year in a row, we have the heads of state from the Indo-Pacific four partners for NATO. So we have South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, and Australian leaders at another NATO summit to deal with this much more global threat. But then the inside matters too.
Yeah, much more global threat too. And I wonder, given all the scrutiny on President Biden right now, there's clearly concern about a change in direction at the White House and what a Trump presidency would mean for NATO.
Absolutely. So there's a tremendous concern about what is happening within the member states and within the allies. France dodged a bullet a few days ago. And now everyone is looking to how President Biden performs this week at the summit. Is he an exemplary head of state? Can he lead the alliance? Or does he stumble? Does he in some way show weakness that will bring anxiety to the U.S.'s closest allies? And what does that mean about the prospect of Trump returning as president? Does that mean that NATO is going to be back in the seat of being bullied? In some ways, NATO is better off. 23 out of 32 member states are paying over 2% of their GDP into defense. That's a stronger, more robust, more Trump-friendly NATO than before. But it's not 100% of the member states. It's not quite enough. And so there's anxiety about how NATO can Trump-proof its processes, how it can show the best step forward. Yeah. And many ways, it means more defense in Europe to keep Trump happy, but also to keep the bad guys at bay.
And a quick word, if you will, on those two red lines that we talked about. No membership for Kyiv until the end of the war and no Western troops on the ground in Ukraine. Once again, that is not what Ukraine would like, but that certainly feels like it will remain the position of NATO until the end of this war.
That really does seem to be the case. There is very little appetite in Washington, especially to extend an offer of membership, an invitation until the hostilities have ceased. And there are those who see that as an invitation for Russia to continue indefinitely. And so instead, there's pressure to try to define, well, what victory means. And how do you get Ukraine into NATO as a success story, part of that victory? But there's going to be a struggle in this tragic week, given the bombing of the Children's Hospital, to deliver something to Ukraine that is substantial and meaningful. But for those who are suffering, often it just doesn't feel good enough.
Kristine, really good to talk to you. Thank you. Kristine Berzina there, Managing Director at Strategy North. So